Horus Heresy is back again.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Ron Barrett from SpikyBits.com, and today we have the Age of Darkness Horus Heresy Starter Set box. Now, you know, you could probably argue that Horus Heresy never really went away. It's been around since 2011, 2012, give or take, whenever they put out that first Betrayal book. But immediately preceding all the Badab War miniatures from Forge World, where everybody was like, "Oh, cool, old marks of armor, and you know, cool chapters and things like that." And GW immediately took the ball and ran with it and gave us Horus Heresy. So I guess it's been about 10-ish years that we've had Heresy, and now they've rebooted it 2.0, Age of Darkness, and of course to celebrate and launch it off and get it all on the right footing, we hope. Well, we got this brand new starter box set, which is rather big. I mean, it's not quite as big as the Ash Waste box set, but it's certainly bigger than the normal starters or expansion box sets from Games Workshop, and it's that nice high quality box, and as you can see with the cameras, it's got a really nice glossy coat to it. Now, what does all this box cost you? Well, let's take a look at the values in the breakdown of this box, just to give you the in GW money if it's worth it or not, and then talk more about the miniatures, put some stuff together, show you how to make a lot of these kits modular, so that you know you future-proof your minis, because if you're going to spend a bunch of money. And by the way, it's $299 US. That's right, $299.99. It was less than $300 as promised by Games Workshop. Jumping real quick into the values over on the site, we've wrote this up and revised it several times when that pricing actually came out, and here you can see the value inside of the box in Games Workshop money is well over $500. Actually, it's more towards the $700 mark, depending on how you look at it. Now some of this, you know, there's a little bit of an asterisk, because we assume the Space Marine box squads are going to be $55. Now they put out the two previous, the Mark IV and the Mark V box sets. They put those out. Actually, why does it say Mark III? They're not the Mark III, they're Mark VI. Whoops, we made a mistake, typo there. So the previous boxes they put out and put a little bit of a deal if you bought the 20 pack directly from Games Workshop. Game stores they could order them, but they're direct order only. Either way, it's probably going to be somewhere in the realm of $55 for the squads when they actually come out. The Cataphractii Terminators, those are existing. We've seen those already. They are currently $70. They came, in the Betrayal at Calth box, I believe? I think that's when they came out. Or was it? Yeah, Betrayal at Calth, and then Prospero Burns, I think, was the Tartarus pattern. So the Contemptor Dreadnought that comes in here, of course, we've seen a Contemptor, a plastic Contemptor. It was ETB, it wasn't that great. But this one is super multi-part, and you can do a lot with it. So we're thinking $70 based on the current price of the Redemptor kit. Characters, $55 for the two of them, based on the Space Marine Characters pack previous. Which had the last characters that came in, what was it, Corpathon and I forget who, Kurtha said or something. I don't know, I'm just making names up at this point. But I believe that box was $55 as well when it came out. But we also saw the Warlocks for Eldar coming at $55. So I think that's a good estimation. Spartan at $110. It's the same price as the Land Raider in plastic. Now, it seems like it could be $125. I would imagine it could be $125. The Kratos was $125. That might be $125. It's really hard to say. Rulebook and other potential accessories in here. There's templates, reference cards. The rulebook itself will probably go for $60 separately when it does come out. I doubt it'll have a different cover, but it might. And, you know, I think everybody's going to have it already. So what is its actual value? I don't know. At least $50, right? At least $50. Hardcover, nice hardcover rulebook. At least $50. That's what I would think. So either way, there is a ton of value in Games Workshop money inside this box. Even if you just want normal Space Marines, maybe a Contemptor that you can use in 40k, of course. Terminators you can use in 40k. Spartan, not so much, but it does have 40k rules. You know, if you just for funsies, hey, then you're already halfway, you know, pretty much making up all your money at this point, and then you're just stuck with a rulebook you might use. So either way, whether you're interested in Horus Heresy or 40k, this box, probably a good pickup if you got $300. Just chilling. So back to the actual box itself. I imagine a lot of folks are going to be getting these, even though it is a bit pricey, of course. But, you know, how often does a new starter of this magnitude actually come out? It might be worth picking up. As we've seen in the past, they redid the orange templates. These originally came out in the Warhammer 40K 3rd edition box set way back in 1999 in this orange color, and matter of fact, or 98. As a matter of fact, they're still stamped copyright 1998 on that right there. So that every time I open this, I get memories of that old box. Whippy sticks, I also get memories of, you know, a bunch of us running around smacking each other with these things. Nobody ever actually used them for their intended purposes. Inside the box, Cataphractii Terminators, tons of those. Then going to get the mini accessory upgrade spoon. We'll look at that here in a second. There's a bunch of these because, well, there's a bunch of the single, and this is very clever how they did that, and we'll look at it in a second. But for the Marines themselves, it's one sprue. One sprue makes all 5 poses of the new Heresy Marines, complete with bolters and all their shoulder pads and all their backpacks and everything. And then, you know, the sergeant upgrades and packs and accessories and things come on this small accessory sprue right here, which seems to be a lot more of what they're doing, is making all these little accessory sprue things that you can get. You know, we've seen it with Kill Team a lot in the past. The 2 special characters are right here, and we'll take a closer look at those. And then more of the Marine sprues. They're pretty much everywhere. It's going to take up the bulk of all this. But yeah, let's not look at all this because there's so many sprues. But let's get to the bottom here, which I think is pretty cool. So there's the little divider. And again, I suspect they started doing this basically to protect. You can see all the divots and things in here. Now imagine your rule book and your instructions were underneath here getting blasted by those sprues. So this would be really, you'd be really sad if you got your hardcover rule book right here and it was all jacked up from sprues pushing down on it. So here's the rule book. It is nice, kind of a homage to the old Black Book days for Horus Heresy, and then it's got a little ad on the back, and all the reference sheets and everything are in here, and we'll look at that in a second. And I'm running out of places to put stuff because there's so much stuff in this box. And then on the back, it's got something we've already seen, of course. This definitely got leaked early on. So Legions of Karen, and this is definitely a plastic version, judging by the treads. The Demios, but we already know that's out. The Kratos, we'll look at that in a separate video. Actually, we'll do the Demios in a separate video probably next week, because I want to break down how to magnetize the combi bolters on the pintle weapons, and we're not going to do it. There's just too much content here in this instruction manual, and then all of your bases and everything and dice are going to be hiding all in these corners right here. And interestingly enough, you're not going crazy. They just randomly put a bunch of bases in the packs here. It doesn't make much sense. You will have extras left over, except for the 60 mil for the Contemptor Dreadnought. Now, starting out looking at the instruction guide here, it's a little bit different. It's more in the Necromunda style of how they lay out this, because there's a whole bunch of different poses and things. But you kind of get the idea here. I imagine these guys, well, they might be sold separately. They might be sold together in a 2-pack. It's really hard to say at this point. But either way, let's kind of dive in. They are going to come with 2 head options here that you can see. They are basically stuck in the pose that you're going to get, unfortunately. But it's a really, you know, both the Praetors are really cool. Obviously, one has a power sword, one has a power axe. You can do the head option, you can do the helmeted option, and they are very dynamic, but you know, they don't have all those clamshell different types of pieces and things. But with the cape and the backpack itself, it does kind of lend that, you know, very bulky but yet also kind of dynamic look to it, but it doesn't have kind of layers, so to speak. But I don't know, we'll see how they're assembled. I think just looking at this, they kind of, to me, they look a little static, but that's whatever. Be careful here. I can already tell looking at this with the sections that whenever we see capes with the sections here, you want to use that super thin, and actually we're probably going to use this super thin Tamiya glue, and I think Mr. Hobby has one at this point. Everybody pretty much has a version of it. It's definitely worth using, and I'll show you why later in this video when we get to the assembly steps. Same here, not too crazy, not too dynamic, but remember, using your super thin glue will get the really down bonded into those cracks, so you don't see lines in the cape, because it doesn't make any sense. And when you go to paint it and you maybe wash it, you're gonna have paint going on in these gaps, and it's not gonna make any sense. Maybe it'll mess up your realism. I don't know. Next up is the tactical squads, and this is really interesting how they did it, because like I said, it was only one sprue and one little accessory sprue, and the accessory sprue pretty much has all the pouches and bayonets and the chain glaives for the bayonets, which are, you know, Gears of War style, which is super dope, and the stuff for the sergeant and the stuff for the Nucio Vox. But what I really like about this is kind of like how they do with Blood Bowl and Necromunda. They have different poses. They have 5 poses. And the accessory bits, like if you get the assault weapon box or the heavy weapon box, they give you the instructions based on these 5 poses as well. So it's very important to learn the 5 poses and kind of have that in mind. They do kind of break it down a little bit on those instructions, which we'll go over here in a second, probably at the end of this, or I don't know where I'm going to squeeze them in, but we'll get to it here shortly. There's not a whole lot to show, but besides the sprues and such. But it kind of goes with these guys, so we'll do that. So, this is a very easy assembly. The only thing that I noticed on here was that the studded shoulder pads are 2 parts, which is really weird. So, it's not as cut and dry, but some of the legs aren't separate either, like we saw in the past. Like they just have, you just glue the leg on. So they're kind of very stuck in their poses, which also, again, is why you're not going to want to clip all this stuff off, because certain bolters go with certain sets of arms, or else, you can't just do it. But it's cool because you won't have all these questions like, how do the arms kind of line up? Like, I have this arm, what arm does this go with? And over here, it all is just going to work as long as you kind of pay attention when you're clipping these things off. Again, because of the studded shoulder pads being in 2 pieces, you don't want a big gap line down the middle. So think about using some of this super thin glue or some of the plastic putty, but that would be a nightmare to get out. We're not going to talk about the Cataphractii Terminators because we've unboxed those in the past. The Contemptor Dreadnought we will talk about, and I think we're going to magnetize this to the best of our abilities here, wherever it's relevant to kind of get some movement and some dynamic posing out of it. The one thing I do want to point out is it does look like they give you an extra toesy, so you can have him kind of walking forward because he's pivoting up on the toe. That's what those extra toes are for. Or you can just go for the double flat toe if you want, and that'll get you looking kind of like that. So the assembly is very similar to the Forge World one. You just want to pay attention here, it looks like, to the locking little latches here, and that these specific ones go with when you flip it around to the back, there's a little wire look, or there's one that just has this little notch on the, well, not really a notch, just more like a square indentation on the back, and that way you got them straight. And then the 2-part little knee kind of armor bits go on there, and then you start building up the torso and the pelvis and all of that into here. There's only one head that comes with it because, I don't know, I think there's going to be a relic release, as we saw just on this right here. This is a plastic version that we haven't seen in the past, so there probably will be another plastic version. And of course, we don't have that Carries assault cannon, unfortunately, in here, but we do have a Gravis auto cannon, a Gravis melta cannon, Gravis las cannon, and the Gravis bolt cannon, which is just basically 2 heavy bolters. Everything else looks to go well here. Now, I've never been a stickler for all the wrist different weapons in here, but they do have some pretty neat little optional external fuel or ammo hoppers that would go on here, and it also comes with the little talons as well as little stubby fingers. So you just kind of got to figure out which one you want to go with. We'll see if it's possible to. I don't really think, I wouldn't put much stock in magnetizing all this. That's just a little too much. Like, I mean, if you have a heavy flamer in there, you have a heavy flamer in there. Half the time you're not even going to see the stupid fist. So like, why? Spend more time putting this stuff together. You could do it, and we're going to take a look. Also, I don't know where we're going to end up magnetizing, because in the past we would magnetize here so you could pull the arms off, but because of the way they do this, I'm wondering if we can put magnets in the little hinges right here and have it swivel, or what we're going to do. Perhaps we'll be able to hide a magnet inside of the top of this this top armor plate right here, this sarcophagus, and then put a magnet in the missile launcher. The Spartan tank is interesting. It's 6 sprues, and none of them are marked Spartan except for 1 sprue. And as we've seen already, it looks like the Proteus Land Raider is going to, the 2 versions are going to share a lot, or have a lot in common with this footprint here. So don't be surprised if you see these similar instructions in the future for something else that utilizes the same pieces. Now, it's also very curious now, and I like how they kind of glue all these together, but until I get my hot little hands on there, it looks in theory like it would work just fine, but it's really hard to see. And also, I like this tongue and groove kind of system for the sponsons right here, which we hadn't seen in the past, and generally you had to magnetize those on the Forge Roll versions, which were a super pain. Also super pain in the Forge Roll versions was getting this internal area here where the 20 troops would actually sit. It was a nightmare. They were never perfectly square, and any Spartan, it'd be very hard to get completely square and working properly with the door and everything like that. So we're going to take a very hard look at this area here when we build it, because this traditionally is where you started and where your problems began with the Forge World one. So I'm hoping that the move to plastic has fixed all those issues, because that would be great. Also, something I can see that is incorrect, just looking at these instructions, it tells you to put the sponson, or the front, I guess it's the front pintle. No, I don't even know what this is. The front weapons into the turret here. They don't exactly have, they line this up with the wrong spot. This goes right here. Do not glue this in right here. This goes right here, not right here where your hatch and your crew goes, which the very next step they tell you to glue more stuff in there, and they don't show you that this is on there, which this is a complete fail from Games Workshop right now on the instructions. So far, Spartan looking a little off to a shaky start, and then you got the smokestacks and everything. The exhaust looks mostly okay-ish. Also, we'll show you on the sprue where there's two different options to build what we assume is going to be a single stack of las cannons, again for the Proteus, with shorter weapon mounts, because there wouldn't be four. I'm hoping these go together okay. Obviously, you want to put your glue on the inside here so that they touch, and then they can free pivot, and this should free pivot because it goes in the tongue and groove system. Then the flooring and everything goes on. It looks like it matches up with the front hull. You get to that point right there, and then the fun begins, where you put all the treads on, which in the past we saw two different versions from Forge World. They put out an original version with a bunch of tread pieces, didn't go together so well. They put out a second version with the tread pieces were already actually part of this right here. So now we're back to individual tread pieces in the plastic one, which looks to be, you know, a lot better, assuming there isn't a bunch of flash and stuff to remove, which could be a concern, because that's a lot of parts. And then it looks like once you glue both of those sides on, you can keep the hatches off if you want, and then these lock in here. And then at some point you just build all your crew and everything. And like I said, we're not going to focus on any of the crew. We're going to do hopefully like how to magnetize the pintles and things in a later video, probably on the Demios. There's just a lot to get through here. And then lo and behold, you have weapons on here. So at this point, they've already failed twice in the instructions. They didn't tell you to put these weapons on, which is a little concerning. I hope they just glue into there. I would imagine they are easy to magnetize, which we'll check. Oh, and that's it. You're just magically, oh, there it is. So you glue the weapons on at that point. So it is in there. I reserve the right to back up. They do tell you at the very end to put those on when you're doing the rest of the accessories. So that's it. That's all the build stuff. Let's take a look at a few of the sprues and then get to building ourselves. Well, almost. We should talk about the upgrade sprues before I forget, because I know people are really interested in these, and some of them are already sold out. So the Legion Special Weapons, they actually, where do I have the box? So this is, you get like basically 10 of each in here, which, you know, I think it's $42 for this. Not a bad deal to get all these weapons, because, you know, scooping up all those weapons separately, even if they're 3D printed, takes time and money. So I could see the, you know, the appeal to getting this here. And as you can see, they have it broken up: pose 1, pose 2, pose 3, pose 4, and pose 5, and they show you, hey, these are designed to go specifically with these poses. So it's very important to pay attention when you're working on these Mark 6 Marines, these beakies, that, you know, you keep all this in mind, because these will line up and they will not fit very well with the wrong pose. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we'll try to build one of each here and kind of show it to you and give you kind of an idea. But, you know, they look good. They seem pretty crisp. I mean, the sprue is right here, and you know, judging by how it all looks, I'm pretty hopeful that there won't be any issues or anything, you know, putting any of this stuff together. But yeah, it's very cool. 2 sprues of these, and then jumping over to the heavy weapons sprues. I guess we need to get a little bit more light in here. Same deal, but not quite the same deal. So they're basically like, hey, you can make a missile launcher, or you can make a missile launcher with the scanner, or you can make heavy bolter or heavy bolter with the scanner. And then here's the key, so they show you what pose and then what bits and what arms go with it. And this one is a little bit different because they do come with the weapon sprue, but then they come with a separate kind of arm sprue here, and that corresponds to those arms that they tell you on this key right here. So kind of keep that in mind. It's a little bit different than what we might have been used to, or actually what all of us have been used to in the past, including Horus Heresy, as well as, you know, just building, you know, normal Space Marines. And speaking of normal Space Marines, let's take a look at the sprue. So here is the sprue for the tactical squads. You're going to get a bunch of these in here. This is pretty, you know, incredible that they are able to put every one of the poses on here, all of the backpacks, all of the weapons, all of the arms, all of the heads. Now, you don't have a crazy variety of heads on here, but there are, you know, some alternate heads. You've got 6 right here, or there's 3, there's 5, there's 2 more, 1 over here. So a little bit of variation. Here you can see the split shoulder pads for the studded bolters, which is also kind of interesting and bold, if I might say so. And everything else is pretty standard. You can see where the legs go on there, and kind of like the old Khorne Berserkers from 2003-ish or whatever. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot of these sprues. And then the weapon sprue, the accessory sprue for it, you're going to have the rest of the stuff on here, like the pistol packs, bayonets, I guess extra power sword, and some other, the Nucio upgrades, and some other stuff on here that I don't quite recognize right off the top of my head. Looks like a multi-bomb, a plasma pistol. I don't know, lots of cool stuff on there too. Now here are the 2 sprues actually for the tactical squad, or the beaky squad rather. And it's kind of incredible how they got all 5 of the poses along with the backpacks, the shoulder pads, everything onto one individual sprue. Kind of nuts when you start thinking about it, but really cool to see that they actually did it. Remember, pay attention to all the poses and things. And you can see here the split studded shoulder pads, so you're definitely going to want to use some of this thin cement here. And then you can see it does have some head options, but not, you know, not full 10 of them or anything like that. Then the rest of the parts are going to be on here, like this little accessory sprue that's got all the pistol pouches and bayonets, the Nucio Vox. It looks like a lightning claw bit that you can put over the power fist, or the power fist stuff for the sergeant, and the auxilia that you can have as well, and a plasma pistol too. So that's really cool to see. And then the other infantry squad, or infantry in general, that are going to come in here are the 2 characters. We talked about this already. These are the nice big sprues. So in theory, they will sell for $38 each when they do come out, or they could value them at $55 as they aren't attached like we saw in the previous ones. But either way, there is a lot of value in here. And I really like how they did the little embossing on the cape here, so you'd have an easier time, you know, painting that line across all the folds. And then you can see all the different weapons and things on here. Tactical rubble, very neat to see, and the 2 different heads. And over here, you've got, this is the one I was talking about that has the folds in there, so you want to be super careful that you get all that. Oh, and there's ooh, that's oh, okay, so it goes down here. Wow, that's wild. Okay, yeah, you definitely want to use the super thin glue so you don't see all those gaps and everything, and it puts all the random lines. Also has some tactical rubble, and that's pretty much it. You know, just a normal dude with a glaive and doing all sorts of dude stuff. All right, let's see what other sprues we have here. A couple more things that, man, kind of a big deal. Okay, so up first, ooh, we got to zoom out a little bit here. Forgive my unprofessionalism. So up first is the sprue that is marked Spartan somewhere around here. I swear it was marked Spartan. Oh, there it is. Right here, it's marked Spartan. So this, in theory, is the only thing that's going to be different out of this squad. It contains all the parts, you know, that front assembly that I was talking so affectionately about earlier, and all of that stuff there. So you've got that sprue, that's one, and then you've got the second sprue, which is the sides to build up and all locks together. And this, in theory, looks right. It seems pretty straight, so you know, I'm definitely got my fingers crossed that this will turn out just fine. And it's got some of the bits for the driver too, it looks like. I didn't notice that at first. Okay, so random arms on there for that guy. That's cool. There's going to be a little bit of a different variance from the accessory sprue that's going to come with all the other kits, I suppose. And then here's the tread sprue. It looks like there's a heavy flamer and heavy bolters as well. Are those the ones that lock in? I don't know where those are supposed to go. Looks like that locks. That's going to lock into this little wheel here that they incorrectly told you where to assemble. But I'm not sure where that heavy flamer goes, to be honest. And then here is the rest of it, the sides, so to speak. So the only thing that's making this the Spartan is that one sprue I showed you. So if they do another sprue, they can make it the Demios with a different front and a different top, because you would need a different top because this only goes back to this area right here. And then there's, of course, the accessory sprue. The vehicle accessory sprue, which I thought I had here, but I guess oh, here it is. Which is 2 different sprues, so we're up to 4 sprues. So here's the vehicle accessory sprue that looks like it's going to come with everything. It has a smaller dozer blade. Obviously that wouldn't fit on the Spartan, so we know that's going to come with other things there, and all the combi hatches and bolters and things, and pintle weapons, and also the missile launcher. And then this was the sprue I was talking about that has the quad las cannons, of course. Quad las cannons, a mount to make it shorter, a mount to mount the quads. And then where is it? The stacks. Oh, I guess that was just it. So that's basically it. That I was kind of shocked. It looks like it's very small compared to the resin one there. And then we can jump to the very last thing on sprue that comes in here. It looks like it's going to be the Contemptor Dreadnought. So the Contemptor Dreadnought is about 2 sprues, 2 of the smaller sprue, 1 bigger sprue. Definitely makes up everything you would think. So what's cool is that this seems to be the weapon sprue and this seems to be the body sprue, so they were able to divide it up. So I'm almost wondering if in the future, you might get this Relic Contemptor kit here and you could have this sprue that comes with it as well, so you could get a bunch of weapons. It's hard to say exactly, but it looks like it's obviously way more posable than the static one that we saw in a previous Horus Heresy starter in the past. I'm not going to go over the Cataphractii Terminators because we did those when the last starter came out, and I think it's time to get into the assemblies. So let's get this party started with the new Spartan itself. This thing is incredibly light, having put together and held up the previous Forge-rolled ones. It looks very similar, very crisp. I got no beef with it at all. This front area here, you could magnetize the weapons as it does. I think it does come with the last cannon ones. I just glued them on because I think that's the only way to take it. But you could pop in little 1/8" magnets with no fuss whatsoever into here. But everything's very functional and moves. We're not going to talk about the top turret, the pintle weapons. We're going to do that in the Demios unboxing and build, which probably won't be this week. And then here's that tongue and groove system, which is really awesome and very cool that it just works and the tension's really good and it doesn't flop about. And then, as long as you assemble the stems to kind of lock in the middle, they can, this thing will swivel and it can track up and down, because why not? Very, very cool stuff there. Now, the area I was concerned with the most was in here, and it turns out that there is no mechanism for opening this. In tandem, it just opens, and the tension is very good, and it stays up. There's no floppy bits or nothing like that, and you can have the ramp. This is how I get out of my car when I get home. I just back up to my house and go, 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 go. But yeah, so. And you can see down in there, it's very well detailed, and you can paint all that if you really want to, or put an LED in there, I suppose. There is no places to put bolters, though, like in the Forge-rolled version, which is, oh no, the thing doesn't weigh 10 pounds. It goes together correctly. It doesn't, you can line it all up. The only thing I didn't really like about this build was all the tread, the time it took you to get all the treads on here. But what you might notice is there really isn't a whole lot of flash on any of these sprues, to be quite honest. But you can put a little bit of, red, what is it? Just texture paint or something on here, so you don't even have to trim those off. I think at the end of the day, it's not even a big deal. So very, very cool to see this, and it works so dope. And then here's how it compares size-wise, just like we saw in the past. There's a Chimera, which is also the same size as a Rhino, and then here's a Macarius tank. So it is about the same size, which is also about the same size as the Kratos as well. And this weighs a ton because it's forge rolled resin. The thing is nuts heavy. I would not want to drop that. Actually, don't drop any of your minis. You should never drop your minis. Here's the Praetor with the sword raised high. We did the non-bear head right there, and you can tell it's incredibly detailed. Lots of dynamic posing here. Very, very cool look. You know, didn't get his feet caught on the ground, unfortunately, but all the cape is one piece. Very, very striking, very, very cool. I really like this model just in general. And then his dramatic foil, his counterpart here, Mr. maybe bad guy, maybe not. You can get an idea of how that all goes together. Very, very cool, very Baroque armor with all the little thingies on there. I don't even know what those are. And then over to here, you can kind of see, I guess we got all the mold lines taken care of with the, you know, slapping that in there and using the super thin glue. You can kind of see it, but it's gonna be, it'll hide in the folds when you're painting it, so you don't have to worry about that. Maybe right down there, it's a little, like I said, a little bit of an issue, but I do like how they emboss this right here. That's very, very cool. That they were able to get in there, and I can see this being the base for a lot of painted figures and conversions and things going forward. Hopefully that one's pretty neat. And then jumping into the squads, we only put together one guy with a bolter because, I mean, I feel like, come on, it's a guy with a bolter. And so there's the guy with the bolter, the coolest looking one, the one from the artwork. And then, of course, they did size him up a little bit, which, you know, people have already weighed in on and talked about. But there's a Primaris, and there's the new size of Firstborn. So not quite, kind of an in-between. It will work in Firstborn armies. It won't look out of place, but, you know, when you got the characters and stuff that are already Primaris size in here, you know, I mean, who's gonna inspect all the models? I mean, people can bitch about it, but these guys are just really cool, and it's a lot more area for painting and things, and the posing's good, the builds are good, you know, as long as you pay attention to all those. This is pose 5. You look at all these grenade packs. Yeah, it's more stuff to paint, but this guy just looks dope. And then here you can see the little gap in the studded shoulder pads, which, if you use a little bit of this stuff, then just to, you know, kind of highlight we didn't on that one because I wanted to show it to you, then that's basically what's going to happen is, unfortunately, you're going to have a noticeable gap, and when you go to paint it, it's going to be a little bit of an issue, unfortunately. Assault weapon wise, these all go together very, very cool, and they have a great look to them. Here you can see they lock into the wrist there. There's no problems with them whatsoever, and those are very cool. And then you've got that's the head. You got 2 more here, a Melta and a Plasma, and even looking up or looking down, they all line up if you follow the instructions, which is, you know, I tell you what, I put a lot of Marines together in my day, and sometimes it's just frustrating because you cut them out and you did all the things, but nope, these are very, very cool, and they will line up as long as you follow the directions. You shouldn't have any issues, and the build should go pretty well. But, you know, depending on how you divide them up, whether you baggy them or whatever, you're going to have to come up with a strategy for them just to ease that pain. So here's the missile launcher, and he looks great. This is one of the, I think there's 3 different poses for each one. And then here's a heavy bolter. Definitely firing it from the hip, because why wouldn't you get some? Boom, 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 boom. Very, very cool stuff. And this obviously harking back to the RTB1 sprue way back in the day in 1988. And to see it reimagined again, very, very similar to what it looked like back then. I think I have a sprue that run around here somewhere still, and a box of them as well, I think, if I had to. This is them right here. Let's see if we got one. I don't know if we have that. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, look at that. It almost lines up. Oh, they just had the different shoulders because they're a pewter and the shoulder pad went there. So yeah, how crazy is that? How far the technology has come to give us that really cool thing right there. Wow. Loving it. All right, let's jump to the Contemptor. So I like to think I saved the best for last, because while I like the Spartan and I like what they did with it and made it more accessible and easier to build for folks, this Contemptor was really fun and kind of a great precursor or indication of what they can do with a lot of the kits, a lot of the bigger walkers and stuff out there. Now, he is, of course, dreadnought size. There's nothing resized up or down about him. You can see by the Primaris. And then this guy here, our normal duder, so definitely the right size. Now, to build this, the first thing you're going to want to do is decide if you want them walking, if you're going to use one of the little toesies up, or if you're just going to have them standing, and then you got to kind of come up with the pose. Once you build up your legs, you're going to want to attach them at the hip right here, and kind of, yeah, you have to have 3 arms basically, but somehow you should be able to manage a little bit. What I like to do is I'll glue one of the feet to the ground, and then I'll put a little bit of the super thin glue here, attach it a little bit super thin glue, so it's kind of drying as I'm holding it, and I'm trying to re-wiggle it and get it set. And it takes, it takes like a minute or two for this stuff to kind of really start to set. And once it grabs, you'll notice it, and then you'll just be able to kind of, once you get this part right here level, if you want this level, because everything else builds up off of it. And speaking of level, before you start gluing it, you're probably going to want to drill out a 1/4 inch magnet hole. You cut off the dome, so to speak, of the little nub right there. Use a pilot, make a pilot hole, whether it's a pin, a tack, or a smaller size drill bit, just so you have something for your larger drill bit to kind of go into. If you haven't started gluing it yet, you could probably use some power tools, but if you have, you might want to use the big hand crank drill that I've showed you in the past. And then you're also going to want to do the same thing here before you glue anything on. Just kind of glue this piece together, this assembly, and then you can just drill it out and assemble that, because there's actually, I think I had to put a little, like I had to cut a little sprue and put it in there, but once it was in there, it had just enough clearance to give it a little bit of support so it didn't sink. But that was super easy. So that's just a 1/4 inch magnet. And then when you're gluing the sarcophagus area here, this top plate is actually its own piece. So just take and glue the same size magnet underneath it, because you're going to want to use the polarity or the attraction to go through the plastic. So you need a thicker piece than what you normally would. And you can sink another 1/4 inch magnet in the rocket launcher up here, and it'll just lock down and you won't have any problems. Put a little bit of glue around the magnet on the inside, so it doesn't technically fall off. Because that'd be terrible, because how are you going to fix that at that point? I guess every time you put this on here, it'll spring back up. Eventually it will shatter, so just be careful with that. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how did you get the arms and everything to be interchangeable? Turns out it was way easier than I thought, and that's why I like this kit. So we didn't do much with this whole interior area here, but you could with 1/8 inch magnets. So I'm very confident that you could. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a bridge too far. I don't think a lot of people will do it, so I didn't cover it. But here's the cool part. Check it out. No magnets. None. Not a single magnet to swap out the arms. And the reason this is possible is because we took this super thin Tamiya glue and did 3 coats. We just put the glue over the little O-ring thing here 3 times, coated it, and it's thin enough that you're not going to lose detail. And what that did was that actually made it tight enough or tolerant, it gave it a tolerance. Now when you prime it, it'll add to that as well. Well, now you know what my doorbell sounds like. Fortunately, well, it worked for both sides, and all of the weapons, which I have here somewhere. I thought perhaps, there they are. A lot of things, a lot of parts everywhere, so we can slide this out. And just want to be careful when you assemble this that you flare out these little arms a little bit, because if you don't, your weapons will, depending on how you position them, catch the knee right there. Or if you just kind of drop these down and have them a little bit more static pose and not the firing from the hip so much as what I did, you probably won't have to worry about that. But that's kind of what I elected for, and I wanted a little bit more dynamic in doing things. So I haven't looked at the rules yet. I assume, but I'm sure the first comment's gonna be like, no, you can't. I already looked at them. That you can do double weapons here, which will be super easy to do as well with that same system, just kind of coating that with a little extra paint, and they lock in there, and it is super sturdy, so you don't have to worry about any of that. So you can have assuming you could get extra sets of weapons, maybe they'll sell that sprue as an additional sprue so that you can have those extra builds of weapons. That would be really neat to see. It's also worth mentioning, I don't know if it's super easy to see here, but this little nub is actually more to the outside than this one that's perfectly centered. So in theory, this one's supposed to work specifically for the fist, but I didn't put much stock on that, and it's very hard to tell either way right there. So this is a very cool kit. They did a really good job with this, and it's very easy to make it modular and with very little work. And you don't even have to put the magnet in here if you don't want to. Just drop you a magnet in the top and a magnet in this, and you can remove it if you need. But if you just want to glue it on, you literally don't have to use any magnets to make this modular, which is kind of incredible. So overall, I think if you're interested in getting started in the Horus Heresy, this is probably the box for you. It is a little pricey. It makes sense in GW dollars, but it is still a $300 box. You're getting 54 miniatures at a good average cost when you consider the vehicles, but a very high average cost. You know, overall, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-ish. A little under $6 each. It's just an interesting box in general that GW has pushed the envelope. Now you could argue that, you know, because of supply chain and COVIDs and all that stuff, it makes sense. But, you know, I would have really liked to see this box be more around the 225 level. And I think, you know, there's something to be said for that. We'll see how many they sell. It's good for 40K players like we discussed. It's just not, you know, it's just not an auto buy for me unless you're interested in this. So obviously pick and choose with your hobby dollars, even more so now than ever. If you don't like the pricing from Games Workshop, consider always purchasing things from local game stores or online from different retailers, because you automatically cut GW's profit in half. And that, once they see people buying more stuff from independent retailers and from other retailers, they will take notice that, hey, where's all our money going? People obviously want this stuff for less. They're buying it from other people that can discount it instead of us. And I agree. Yeah, you might not have a GW store or a local game store near you, or trust one online. We have, you can search the site, spikybits.com. Hey, who are some good retailers to order from? You might not like your local game store. Maybe you want the extra stuff that comes with this box. And there are a few extra items that do come with this box that you can get direct from GW, but is that extra money worth those extra items when you could send a message to Games Workshop about the price of the box? And at the end of the day, that's your 100% right to vote with your hobby dollars however you want. But I think not voting with your hobby dollars and just boycotting GW is not the way to go at all, because, you know, why give up on something you really enjoy when there's other ways to make your voice heard out there, I think, that will hit GW in the pocketbook. So that is it for this one. Thank you for listening and watching. I know it was a long one. We have the Kratos coming up as well. And we will be doing the Demios next week with hopefully some really good magnetization options in that for the pinsels in the front of the or on the top of the fuselage as well. So remember, you can always get your hobbies for less from dicehead.com, Amazon, or hopefully your local game store too. If you liked that video feature, consider supporting us over at patreon.com and get back in the mail each month a miniature crate full of some of the stuff we review here, as well as some of the top 3D artist designs out there too, to help support what they're doing. Plus, discount coupon codes from some of those same manufacturers. They're yours to keep, whether you cancel or stay on. It's totally up to you. Obviously, we want to keep you as happy as possible. So check it out over at patreon.com/spikybits.